Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to GDI Consulting's webinar on NASA simulation and advanced software services. It's 1 o'clock and we're going to start the webinar now. For those of you who have not participated in our webinars before, I'm going to explain a little bit about the administrative notes on our company, and then I will hand over this to my colleague, Mark Howard, who is our Federal Capture Manager. My name is Ab Vand. I head our Capture and Proposal Development Division at GDI Consulting. Okay, let's go into some of these administrative notes to start with. This webinar is being recorded, and the recording will be sent to you within 24 hours. So in case you drop out or need to leave earlier, you can receive the recording later on tomorrow. We will have a Q&A session at the end, so you can answer any question, ask any questions that you might have. To do that, there is a chat box to the right, and you can type your questions as we go along, and then we'll get to those questions at the end and answer them either by me or Mark. Also, there's a red button to the right with 3 dots on it. When you click on it, it opens the right-hand panel. Usually it's open when you start it, but if you want to expand the screen, you can click on it again, and that panel is hidden, so you get a larger screen. Also, on that same panel, there is a button to download the slide presentation. So you can download the presentation as well. And if you're disconnected, there is a red button with 3 dots at the top of the screen to reconnect. Okay, so with that said, the webinar schedule is, I will go a little bit into what GDI Consulting is doing, and I apologize for those who have participated in our webinars before. This might be a repetitive one. Then we'll go into a preliminary capture research that Mark will explain, an opportunity overview, the scope of the work for this job, for this bid, the proposal instructions, the evaluation criteria, and a little bit of a win strategy and partnering, and then we'll get to the Q&A session. Okay, a little bit about our company, GDI Consulting. Very short, I will try to be very quick so we get to the main slides. We've had a rocket growth during the past few years. Last year we had 68% growth in revenue. We have an 81% win rate. We are very selective as to the projects that we take on. We want to make sure that we keep our win rate and our clients have a high win rate and don't waste their money on something that they're not going to win. So we are very selective, and at the same time use very highly experienced professionals to prepare the proposal or do the capture for them. We have over 50 proposal managers and writers in our company, and the majority of them, I think it says 84% now, have over 20 years of government experience, government proposal writing and capture experience. We've had 210 wins in 2018-2019 period that have been announced with a cumulative value of $6.2 billion. Just yesterday, we received the news of a large $6.4 billion Air Force award to one of our clients that we wrote the proposal. So we're very excited and happy about that. The services that we provide are capture, proposal, and consulting. So the full life cycle of proposal development and bidding for the government, from the capture, long-range capture to very short-term capture processes, win theme research, pain point discovery, and all the different aspects of capture, all the way to full proposal development, technical writing, resume composition, past performance, and color team reviews. And then to consulting such as key personnel intelligence and placement, black hat review, staffing relationship, and P-win tracking. So we provide the full range of what every company needs to get on the government's winners list. And you can see from some of the projects that we have won during the past few years, in all different areas, from information technology to engineering and defense, management and professional services, construction, environmental, and facility maintenance. These are the list, partial list, of course, of the projects that we have won. So I'll just skip on that. And we'll get to now we're preliminary capture research, and Mark can take over from here and explain to you about NASA and then on. Mark, please.
Hey everybody, Mark here. Appreciate your time. Let's go ahead and get to the preliminary capture research that I've compiled for this opportunity. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide here. So this opportunity is with NASA and Johnson Space Center, specifically within NASA. Here are some of the metrics that we want to track when we're looking at capture, when we're looking and trying to understand the different opportunities, trying to get a breadth of what the agency is, what the agency is looking for, what they're spending their money on. And specifically, you'll notice that Johnson Space Center is almost 20% of NASA right now. Of the 17,000 employees, over 3,000 of them are with Johnson Space Center. It's important to know these metrics and understand the agency, and we'll get more to this as we continue the slides, because knowing and understanding the agency helps us understand pain points, helps us build win themes, and subsequently helps us get wins. So NASA has an IT management challenge. All of these opportunities that NASA is putting out, whether through task order, through IDIQ vehicle, or through solicitation IDIQ similar to SASS, they are going to touch this IT management challenge. And without reading the slides word for word, it's easy to understand that when NASA has its IT assets and it has all of these different systems that are working together in conjunction with one another, that these systems are going to overlap and therefore are going to have subsequent pain points and win themes that we as the customer can hone in on, do what we can to show our ability to mitigate risk and provide good performance to NASA. The big thing we want to focus on here is in the software realm, how the IT management processes are handled. Do we have the right subject matter experts? Are there the proper key personnel in place? And do we understand things that are occurring within the agency that we can shed light on in our proposal response? So the NASA organizational structure, very much a top-down organization. There are decision makers all throughout the branches within NASA and all throughout the various space centers. And what we really want to try to do is understand who we're going after as far as agency, and then subsequently build relationships within the agency so that way we can have our win themes resonate because we understand them. We understand what they're looking for, we understand who they are, and we have the ability to make contact and get information that we can relay within our proposal response. There are some significant deficiencies. And again, without reading the slide word for word, you'll notice significant deficiency one is information technology management, which we just touched on. NASA has a long-standing history of working with contractors on IDIQ vehicles similar to this one to address their pain points. And this is important to understand because in order to win work with NASA, you're going to have to get on a contract vehicle similar to this one. If you believe that your supplies and your services and your capabilities match with parts of the scope of work, this might be a good way for you to get in at the ground level with NASA. The analysis of this is, while area listed below might be more technical in nature compared to what we're looking at and vice versa, areas of process management, IT support, internal control, financial management, they're all going to be aspects within these deals, whether it says it in the scope of work or not. And it's important that we're able to speak to these deficiencies, whether or not they're being spoken to directly. So this, again, is just a continuation, just highlighting some more agency's significant deficiencies. You'll notice number 3, unsupported software. Systems and programs which no longer fully supported to the associated software vendors remain unsupported or extended period and continue to expose NASA to vulnerabilities that cannot be sufficiently mitigated. This is something that is going to directly impact this particular opportunity. While it's important to understand the full scope of services that NASA is having a problem with, this particular one, I think, is one that's going to resonate in all of our responses. And we need to make sure we're crafting responses that include intelligence and research surrounding this particular pain point. Again, more significancy deficiencies. Essentially, what we're trying to do here is give an idea, give a snapshot of what NASA is having issues with, and subsequently, implement controls at each layer of their IT environment, because there's going to be security risks all over the place. All of these systems and softwares are going to have applicable standards that need to be met. There are going to be NASA processes and procedures that are going to have to be met. And we need to make sure we're doing our due diligence as the contractor to show NASA that this risk is being mitigated. This is very important. I can't overstate the importance of this. This is just some more backup information highlighting everything I just said, talking about some more specific weaknesses, talking about configuration weaknesses, technical controls, really understanding how these duties are being monitored, and processes and procedures, which I just touched on. So with that, we're going to get into the opportunity overview. So this is with Lyndon B. Johnson Space Center, also known as JSC. It's a follow-on for the robotics vehicle and graphic simulation services. They were combined into one IDIQ, and that's what you see here before you today in draft format, the Simulation and Advanced Software Services, SASS. The statements of work for this are again going to be combined from the other 2 opportunities. They had a source of SALT notice that was already put out. This is the draft RFP, draft solicitation that we're getting this information from. There will be a live RFP that's projected to come out next month per the procurement agency. And you can see here, this is a size standard of $25.5 million or less, and that has to do with the size of your company. So take that into consideration when you're trying to see if your capabilities match here. And 541511 custom computer programming services is the next code. Here's our opportunity snapshot. You'll see the solicitation number. You'll see the title of the solicitation, our agency, and then again talking to the different plan dates, release dates in line with agency procurement forecasting. The RFP should be coming out sometime next month, close to Thanksgiving. NASA, as well as other large federal agencies, I'm sure love to do that. They really want to make sure we're spending our Thanksgiving working for them. Pre-proposal conference is scheduled for beginning of December. It's not listed right now, the confirmation of that, but we want to make sure we're at the pre-proposal conference if we can make it, or we send somebody, whether it's a consultant or whether it's somebody from your firm, to the pre-proposal conference. So that way the folks on the other side know that there's a book coming over the wall, right? It's very important that in putting together these opportunities, we make sure that somebody knows that we are going to submit and who the company is, and really be looking for our response, as opposed to, again, just throwing the metaphorical proposal over the wall. That's not what we want to do here. Contract projected start date supposed to start in the summer of 2020, I apologize. Contract award is the summer of 2020 as well. So contract award and contract start date, not too long of a transition in period. So something else to keep in mind when we're putting together our response. So this is some of the contract information that I found to be relevant in looking at the solicitation that I thought I'd share. So there's a couple of different ways that the solicitation is broken down. Obviously, it's an IDIQ, indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity vehicle. It's going to be a cost plus fixed fee with additional task orders with a firm fixed price phase-in period. There's no established ceiling yet for this contract. However, on the small end, task orders are going to be 100,000, and it has a ceiling for up to $100 million per task order. So this is going to be a fairly large opportunity, a fairly large vehicle within NASA. And you'll see once we get into the different scope components how large it really is. There are really 8 or 9 different encompassing areas that are going to be broken down into this IDIQ. For those worried about travel, because Johnson Space Center is in Texas, travel cost is included and will be reimbursed. Not allowed to make profit, but it is important to know that travel will be reimbursed. And the contractor is not required to be CMMI certified. However, CMMI certification development practices for projects is recommended. And you'll see when we get into the scope breakdown, there are a lot of words that are used in conjunction with CMMI practices. So additional contract information, contractor is going to support the technology capital planning and investment control in accordance with DRD3 information technology capital planning and investment control. So there's going to be a CPIC aspect to this contract. And, this is pretty standard, but all government property is going to be managed as well. And there are going to be, again, we spoke about a little bit earlier on in the presentation, we spoke about how there's going to be NASA specific directives and initiatives that have to be followed. This data and records management plan is an example of that. And we really want to make sure we're comparing apples to apples and we're showing the government what they want to see, right? It's really important that they're seeing what they ask for. A lot of times it's easy to get caught up in the process and not really respond to the way they want you to respond, including some of these separate metrics they want to see. All right, that brings us to the scope of work here. So let's get into that. So this scope overview, it's going to encompass a few different areas. So it's going to encompass at a 10,000 foot level robotics, biomechanics, graphics, and we're talking simulated graphics as well as desktop, vehicle guidance, navigation and control. There's an engineering component that's separate from the robotics. There's an engineering component that's related to software and simulation. And there's also efforts pertaining to the space station program, Orion Multiple Purpose Crew Vehicle Program, Commercial Crew Program, and other advanced programs such as Gateway and Artemis. So this is a very large scope. NASA is really trying to get a feel for contractors that can help them from more than one service standpoint. And I think winning on this IDIQ vehicle is going to be determined on how well you can align capability to more than one of these areas. And we'll get more into that when we get to the evaluation criteria. So this is just running through the scope of work. Again, without reading these slides word for word, simulation services, orbit robotic manipulator systems, robotic projects, human mechanical representations. So this is anything that has to do with NASA simulation services, whether it be working at the space station, whether it be working on their software modules, whether it be working on their different, to use their object surface interaction and space-based vehicles as an example, their flight simulation software, the video game software, so to speak. This is really what encompasses this section of the scope. It's pretty large. To continue on, there are additional advanced software services they require. At a high level, that's going to encompass advanced software development technology, advanced software services, research, development, RD&D, deploying complex techniques associated with the R&D, and avionics, additional avionics research, and advanced collaboration, engineering, and process automation, also known as ACEPA. There's again, we touched on this briefly, there's a robotics and biomechanics component to this. So we're not just managing the software, we're not just managing their flight simulators. There's an aspect of this IDIQ that has to do with robotics and understanding what NASA is going to be trying to accomplish with their innovative vision to the future. And again, without reading these slides word for word, you can see that anything having to do with their robotics and biomechanics simulation services is going to be encompassed in this. Rendezvous proximity operations and docking simulation services, again, having to do with, their orbital dynamics, their natural environment modeling, working with the different spacecraft, working with understanding the software that are associated with the spacecraft, flight controls, hardware sensors, various docking mechanisms to use within the space travel and docking. 4.3, astronomical object surface interaction simulation services. Again, I'm not a subject matter expert in these areas, so I won't go ahead and bore you reading these slides word for word. They will be available for your use. And again, you can download this at any time. But really trying to understand that NASA is looking for more than just basic software services. And it's our job to pair and partner with the right teams when applicable, showcase our capability. If that's not required, to really try and hit all of these different mechanical systems and different dynamics that are being proposed within these different scope areas. Graphic simulation services. So this is, one of the more straightforward within the scope area. So this is 3D graphics capabilities needed for RT simulation visualization and NRT engineering analysis. So essentially what we're doing here is trying to match, 3D graphics, extended reality capabilities, and give NASA the whole suite of services they require within the graphic simulation services tree of doing work for them. Again, it's not just software. It's important to understand that this is more advanced than just basic software development, and it's going to require some specialized contractors, and we're looking for small businesses. So if any of this work resonates with you, make sure that you get on this vehicle so that way you can take advantage of the opportunity. All right, advanced software development technology. So this is modeling specifications, extensible markup, behavior modeling tools, computing communications tools, pattern matching statistical classification systems, and other COTS products, other operating systems, network protocols, network controls, deep machine learning, and spaceflight software across platform architectures. So you can see here that this is a very robust scope of work and what they're asking for. And we, again, as a small business, we really want to make sure we're doing our part to match capability to need. That's our job in increasing PWIN. So advanced human computer interaction. So this involves developing, deploying methods and tools that will assist designers and users of software systems, and additional 2D, 3D spatial modeling, augmented reality, virtual environments, hybrid and mixed reality, chroma key, eye tracking, brain-computer interface, biometric data collection and processing, mental workload detection, and multi-degrees of freedom, simulators. You get the drift here if this is what you do. This is again more than just basic software engineering. This is something that if we can show relevance to, if we can connect the dots, understanding how to respond to these different scope areas, that's how you're going to score well. And again, we'll get to scoring pretty soon here. Avionics flight software, again, just to save time, I don't want to just read this slide word for word. SE&I, system engineering and integration effort, vehicle systems management. 4.8, advanced collaborative engineering and process automation. So this is research and development of AC EPA applications and enhancements, integration and deployment of AC EPA applications for NASA engineering organizations, and then ongoing operational support and maintenance of deployed AC EPA application. So we've got a proposal overview coming up here. Let's go ahead and dive into that. It's important to understand that this is a complex proposal. It is LPTA, low price technically acceptable in nature. And, when we get into the evaluation criteria, you'll see the breakdown of that. But just to show you the different sections and page limits. So it's not a huge proposal from a page limit standpoint, but it is larger than most. It is a 65-page technical factor proposal. And within this technical factor proposal, there's a contract management plan. There's going to be specific technical understanding and resources of sample task orders, and we'll get to the sample task orders in a minute. And obviously, they want to see your phase-in plan. There's a past performance section where we have to give past performance citations, environmental safety data, insurance information, past performance attachments. We have to show our org charts. So we have to show how our companies are set up now, whether it's a graphic, or narrative. That's up to you. But I recommend on these org chart sections to do both. Past performance information spreadsheet. So in addition to past performance citations, there's an information spreadsheet and past performance questionnaires. So you're going to have to reach out to your customers for all these opportunities that you're wanting to include in this solicitation, and you're going to have to get permission to use the past performance, and you're going to have to get them to vouch for you. So I recommend selecting past performances that are close to the vest, and that you can reach out to your customer, and your customer is going to give you good ratings. You don't want to not know what the customer is going to give you, because the fastest way to not score and be unacceptable on these past performance sections is to give a past performance rating citation that doesn't have a really good rating, because I can tell you everybody else is going to have a really good rating on the past performance citations that they're selecting. So just please keep that in mind. And if you don't have the team in place to help you with all this, that's what we're here for. We're here to help with that. So there is moving on, there is obviously a cost price factor. That's going to be volume 3. Cost price factor essentially means low price, technically acceptable. We want to see what you can do, but you've got to meet the standard prereqs. You've got to meet what we're looking for. You have to be acceptable, and then you got to show your responsibility considerations, which is the next volume. There is a model contract, which is basically filling out a bunch of various paperwork that they want to see, agency specific. Other submissions, there are a lot, and you'll see down at the bottom, it says section J, attachment J, attachments. In addition to the personnel resumes, there are quite a few attachments that have to be filled out. And we'll get to that a little bit further on here. I think it's one of the next slides, and really understanding what they're asking for. But, there's a lot of paperwork with this opportunity. This IDIQ has a lot of due diligence on the front end in order to be technically acceptable. So this is not one that you can just roll in without knowing what you're doing and win the work. You're going to have to either have a strong team in place internally, or have a team externally that can help you achieve these goals and complete all these various documents and show compliance throughout the proposal. So I spoke about the sample task orders. Here's an example of the 8 sample task orders. Now, for each one of these sample task orders, there is a separate, I would call it, instruction sheet. And without showing you a picture of the instruction sheet and wasting your time just reading through it, it's important to understand that each one of these is going to have a different way that it's graded. So if you don't have experience in one of these sample task order areas, my recommendation is not to try and put it together yourself. It's to encompass a teammate or a partner that can help you respond in one way or another, to try to show that you are capable. And you do not want to be answering sample task orders and giving mock write-ups in these technical sections without knowing what you're talking about. You cannot just copy and paste past performance on contracts like this. You will be immediately deemed unacceptable. It's very important to note that. So we talked about the attachment J, all the different attachments. I'm not going to read all these to you. You have all of these here. But you can see that there's a lot that goes into it. They're asking for contract management plan. They're asking for phase-in plan. They're asking for labor category breakdowns. They're asking for price breakdowns. They're asking for data records management plan. You get what I'm saying here, in that this is a very intricate proposal, and you want to make sure that you have the resources in line to make sure you can respond to this. To continue on here, again, I spoke on the other side, health and safety plan, IT security program management plan, the IT capital planning and investment control plan. That's the CPIC. That's that's important. That's financial management, folks. That's That's not just software management and control. That's financial management, data and records management plan, government property management plan, total comp plan. So now we'll get into the eval criteria. There's a lot of words on these next slides that really encompass the message I relayed. So I don't need to repeat myself in that sense, but it is important to understand that on these technically acceptable contracts and opportunities, that acceptable and potentially acceptable is what you need to go after. You can be potentially acceptable and still get through. And if you've got a low enough price, the government's going to contact you and consider you for selection. If you're unacceptable, though, they're going to stop reading and they're going to put your proposal on the other side of the table. So we want to make sure that from a front end, we have all of our gaps filled and we're acceptable, either acceptable or potentially acceptable across the board. Because if you're unacceptable, it's going to impact your score and you're not going to be able to, you're not going to be able to win the opportunity if you have anything that's unacceptable. So here's some sub-factors. Contract management plan. It might seem like just an attachment J and an asterisk under the technical factor, but when Section M, which is the evaluation criteria section, when Section M calls out for something specifically, it means they're going to look at it very closely. So we really want to make sure that our contract management plan is put together in a way that's going to score and it's going to be deemed acceptable. So and that's important to take note of. Subfactor B, specific technical understanding and resources of the sample task orders. Again, we talked about the sample task orders and responding and how to respond. We want to make sure that on the sample task orders, we have the right team in place to help us respond to these. We don't want to go into it blind with holes, because if we do that, we're going to be deemed either potentially acceptable or unacceptable. And again, with the right team, this vehicle is easily gettable. As long as you're deemed acceptable, as long as you can show that risk is mitigated, you've got a shot. So subfactor C, phase-in plan, it's pretty self-explanatory. You'll notice I highlighted that part of the contract because it is a short transition. So you want to keep that in mind. Getting to the next section of Section M, past performance. That's going to be volume 2. As I talked about earlier on, this is one that is interesting because it's looked at in the aspect of recency, relevance, and performance. So, recency, is it within the past 5 years? Relevance, are they able to compare scope? And performance, how did you do, right? That's the past performance questionnaire. So you got one past performance sheet to fill out, but you also have the questionnaire to fill out as well. And that all is encompassed within your score for the past performance factor. And it's important to note that. Cost factor, we talked about this. Government's evaluated proposed costs, established probable cause of doing business with each offer. It's also important to note, this is a cost plus fee, right? This is an IDIQ. This is one that there's going to be labor categories assigned. There's going to be labor categories. I apologize. There are labor categories identified within the solicitation, and we want to do our best, to get the best rate on these labor categories. Because I can assure you, there's going to be a company out there that has labor cat rates that are in line with what their projections are, and you do not want to try to profit, insane amounts of money on these different labor cat submissions when it has to do with an IDIQ that's structured this way. They are truly looking for, hey, who can do these jobs? Who's got the capability? And, look, they know how much it's going to cost, right? They know exactly how much it's going to cost. They're given the labor cats. It's just our job to match it up and complete the crossword puzzle on that. They also mentioned, fully burdened rates. So they want, direct labor rate, indirect rates, and fee components. So they want, the fully burdened rates. They don't want, partials. All right, win strategy and partnering. And I'm going to go ahead and speak to this a little bit, and then I'll pass it back to Ab here. But, win strategy and partnering, at a basic level, you want to create a strong team that gives NASA confidence in your ability to perform. You need to show that you're acceptable. You need to show that you're going to qualify. You need to show that you understand the work. And then to piggyback off of that, you're going to strengthen your ability to get acceptable scores on volume 2 if your gaps are filled for the RFP requirements. You don't have to fill all of them by yourself, but you need to make sure that the team you have in place does. And, hey, how can we help? Well, we can introduce you to companies where you have holes. And we can help fill gaps in addition to, teaming gaps. We can help fill gaps on your proposal submission. We can fill gaps with your writing. We can fill gaps with your ability to capture some of this information that you see here in a preliminary setting and turn it into a responsive and actionable response that the government is going to resonate with. Despite this not being, strictly evaled from, the standpoint of best value, they are still going to be reading these proposals, and your company is going to have access, to some really important figureheads here, and you want to leave a good impression. So, if you're going to respond to this is a huge opportunity, especially for small businesses. You want to make sure you have the right team in place, not only on your teaming, but, in your capture and proposal response and the way you're going about submitting your response. So some winning suggestions here. Obviously you want to perform a gap analysis, so that way you can really understand your company's capabilities match up to the requirements. Okay, you want to decide on your partnering strategy based on your gap analysis. So you're going to use your ability to do this work as a basic barometer. Okay, and then where you have holes, you're gonna try to compose a winning team. You're going to concentrate on your mapping of past performance early. If you want to win, you don't want to wait until the last minute to put these together. You definitely don't want to wait to the last minute to reach out to your customer and let them know that a questionnaire is on the way. Because if you do that, your chances of getting a good rating are going to go down. I'm sure everybody on this call knows contracting officers and contracting officer representatives, they're busy. They really don't want to fill out these past performance questionnaires. And if they agree to fill it out for you, make sure you're giving them enough time to do it. Research labor categories and labor rates. So, again, we touched on this on the eval slides. Know your price to win. Know how you're going to get there. These opportunities don't just come together overnight. You need to use their labor rates, and you need to get fully burdened rates. And if you don't know, where to look for that, reach out to the procurement office. Have somebody reach out to the procurement office for you that has a relationship. Have a company like GDIC help you with these things, right? Because this is not something that you're going to be able to do, on your own. In addition to managing the proposal, in addition to getting all these documents together, right? This is to win this type of money and to have an opportunity at these type of deals, really have to have everything in line. So it's important to understand that. And do some incumbent personnel research. All right. If you don't have the time, have someone on your team do it. If they don't know where to look, we can do it. Whether it's part of the team to understand your requirements, doesn't matter. Just need to know where to look and how to contact these individuals. Because the more you understand about this opportunity, the more you understand about the task orders that were on the last follow-on, the more you're going to have a chance to make money for your company, because you're going to understand the work. If you don't understand the work, you're not going to have a chance. We talked about this a little before. Start early, right? Don't wait for the RFP to be released and then, put your proposal together. Pseudo pink, another word for pre-pink team, have your response ready. We got all this information from a draft RFP. We can help you with that. We can help make a pink team for you. If you don't have structure, internally to do that, we can help you with these things. Make sure you prepare your team, your subcontractors well in advance. You do not want to respond to something like this last minute, because you're not going to win. You're just not. Make it easier and increase your P-win. So again, that comes back to us. Assign a team. If you've got a team internally, great. Hire a team. If you don't, though, because if you don't have a team internally to put this together, if you're trying to lift this on your own, this is a heavy lift. This is not a straightforward, hey, section L, section M, let's read section C, we're done. There are numerous attachments, there are numerous processes being mentioned here throughout the opportunity, and there's a lot of room for mistakes. And you want to have somebody there to check those mistakes for you. If you have it internally, great. If not, we can help. And plan ahead, right? Understand complexity requirements for a response with these requirements. It's really important that you do that. And with that, I'll go ahead and pass it on to Ab. Ab, you want to go ahead and take it away?
Okay, thank you, Mark, for your explanations. We have a few questions, and I want to go over them. A majority of questions were with regards to partnering. Some primes have asked us how they can actually connect to the subs and vice versa. So I'll take that question. You can, if you download the slide deck, you have Mark's and mine and Marone Freedy, our business development manager's email. So you can contact any of us, and we can respond to you. So if you're a prime looking for subs, do let us know what you're looking for. And if you're a sub trying to become part of a team, just send us your information, and we'll try to make it easier so that all sides can shake hands as soon as possible. So that's one of the major line of questions I answered in that. And another one, which is quick, I'll answer, is do you work with small businesses less than 25 people? Of course. So we help with small businesses all the way to large businesses. We have very large 30 or 40,000 people contractors, defense contractors we're working with, all the way to very small businesses. So we're good with that. Okay, let me pose some questions to Mark then. First one is, how do companies that have not worked before with NASA and had not had the opportunity to work with NASA software, however, have the technical knowledge of simulation or robotics, how could they compete? Can you respond to that?
Sure. I think that's a great question. I think, I think there's a couple of ways to go about this, but, the primary advice I would give in this situation is, make sure you have your gaps filled from an understanding standpoint. You mentioned that you have technical knowledge of simulation and robotics work. Put a portfolio together and understanding how the work matches up. Okay. Reach out to a company like ours. We can help you with that. We can put you in touch with other companies that maybe fill some of the other gaps that you have. And subsequently, if you have gaps filled, as I mentioned, this is a technically acceptable proposal, low price. So what you really want to do is, if you can come in with good rates for this type of opportunity, and you don't necessarily need NASA exposure, you don't necessarily need NASA past performance, because this is not best value, right? So you want to make sure that your gaps are aligned in what you want to respond to, but understand that the eval criteria, it is encompassing in the sense that if you understand most of this work, you should be at least potentially acceptable. So there is nothing that says that only companies that have worked with NASA have the opportunity to win this work. And as a matter of fact, I would say that if you have an understanding of this work, you've got a great opportunity to get on a contract vehicle with NASA. This could be a good way for you to get in with NASA.
Okay, Mark, actually you answered two questions, but I'll pose them anyways. First one is, do we have to have worked with NASA as far as the past performance that we provide? And the second one, which is related also, is, can we use commercial past performance? Can you respond to these? Mark, we're not hearing you.
Can you hear me now? Great. I don't see anything in the solicitation that says you cannot use commercial past performance, and generally that means you can. The thing you want to make sure, though, is that if you're going to list a citation as past performance, it's similar in size, scope, and complexity to some of the task orders here. So you can't have a robotics contract for $50,000 in a commercial realm and say, well, this is relevant because it's the same work. It has to, either if it's commercial, it's going to have to be a larger contract. It's going to have some of the same complexity burdens. it's going to have areas of the scope that align. It cannot just be at a high level robotics and commercial. So if you have complexity measures that you can match up, if you have a way that you can match up, suitability and show that you can be potentially acceptable, I don't see any reason that you can't use a commercial citation. But again, it cannot just be a small commercial, project that's relevant. It's got to be, a little, not on the large side, but it cannot be small.
Okay. One other question is, if we are using past performance from our subs, is there a limit as to the number of past performances that we can use from our subs, or is there a minimum that we should use from our side?
Sure. So I would say, if you want to be, acceptable, there's probably not a limit to what you can use from a subcontractor standpoint, but you want to understand the government is looking at your company and they're trying to understand if you're going to be a risk. If you can show that you understand this work, if you can show that you've managed large contracts before, large task orders before, without doing the exact work when you've got a large team of subs, you might have a shot. But rule of thumb is you want to have some exposure to the scope. You don't want to go in blind.
Okay, good. I think we've come to the end of the questions. Nonetheless, if anybody has more questions, please email us and we'll try to answer you. And as I said, the recording for this will be sent to you automatically tomorrow within 24 hours. And any more questions, just send it over to us and we'll try to respond back to you. I would like to thank everyone for attending. Just one note, we are going to have another webinar on another NASA opportunity, the Open Innovation Services 2, in about 2 hours at 3 o'clock. So for all those who would like to attend, and if you have not registered, you can register. If you don't have the registration link, just let us know, email us, and we'll send you the registration link. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for attending, and have a great day.